So with Kingdom Hearts 4 finally getting revealed, this could actually indicate something massive for Final Fantasy, and that is the fact that Final Fantasy IX Remake could actually be a thing. You might be wondering, well, what are you talking about? How does that all connected? If you don't know, I'll explain it. We're going to discuss it here in this video. I wanted to make this video because I am extremely excited about the massive possibility that Final Fantasy IX is in fact getting a remake as well. Maybe the same treatment as Final Fantasy VII Remake has received as well. And again, the question is, what is the timeline going to be? What is, the details? What evidence do we even have? We're going to go through it all in this video. So if you guys do enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like. Really helps out the channel. Subscribe for more. We talk about the games and play the games here on the channel. If you missed my reaction to the Kingdom Hearts 4 reveal trailer and Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, definitely check it out. If you don't know, I'm a massive Kingdom Hearts fan. Some of my most, popular content here on the channel has been Kingdom Hearts related. I love it. It's just my thing, man. Kingdom Hearts and The Legend of Zelda and Final Fantasy are three of my favorite franchises of all time, and that's why I'm really excited to talk about not Kingdom Hearts, but Final Fantasy IX Remake. Ironically, this morning I was looking at some random games online and came across someone who was selling Final Fantasy IX, the original, on PS1 complete, CIB, complete in box, manual and all that. Wasn't even looking for it, and then now this all comes up, which is kind of ironic and not connected, but I just thought it would be kind of cool to mention that. So what does this matter? How is it related? Kingdom Hearts 4, Final Fantasy IX Remake. What am I talking about? If you don't know, there was a massive NVIDIA leak that a database leak that happened a while back. We talked about it a little bit. We actually talked about the fact that Kingdom Hearts 4 was listed in that database leak. And there's a bunch of other games in there, but I wanted to specifically talk about the Square Enix games particular because that's where things get really, really interesting. So in this database leak, there was a bunch of games that was revealed that had not yet been announced. So for example, we had the PC version of Final Fantasy VII Remake. We had a remaster of Chrono Cross. That same leak also revealed a PC version of God of War, also Uncharted Legacy of Thieves, and some other stuff that has since then been basically confirmed, right? Now, of course, NVIDIA, like any other company, at the time said that the leak, containing God of War, PC, Gears 6, and all that, they said it was all speculative, right? But all this is coming to fruition bit by bit by bit. Now, specifically with Square, every single Square Enix game in that list has been officially announced at this point, with Kingdom Hearts 4 being the latest one, except Final Fantasy IX Remake, which was in the list as well. We had everything in there, so we had, like I said, we had the Final Fantasy VII Remake, we had remaster of Chrono Cross, we had Kingdom Hearts 4, and we had Final Fantasy IX Remake. So, I mean, yes, it's not officially announced, but I'm pretty sure this is almost completely set in stone. I would be very, 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 very surprised at this point if Final Fantasy IX Remake isn't actually a thing, given the fact that, again, all of these other things got announced. Now, Kingdom Hearts 4, when that database leak happened, I said it was a given. I'm like, come on, man. Like, Kingdom Hearts 4, it's kind of obvious they're going to make a Kingdom Hearts 4, right? The question is, are they going to make a Final Fantasy IX Remake, right? And some people were kind of mixed on Kingdom Hearts 4 because some people were like, well, the saga ended with Kingdom Hearts 3, the story's over, and that's that. And if you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, if you've been following the Kingdom Hearts franchise, that is not that. It was definitely not that. It was not the end of it. It was the end of the Xehanort saga, but there was a lot more to tell in the Kingdom Hearts world. So yeah, Kingdom Hearts 4 comes around, trailer revealed this morning, and now we're all on the edge of our seats thinking, hey, Final Fantasy IX Remake. Now here's the big question about that, right? Because Square has a lot of games in the works, quite a few games. And so the question is, if they do release Final Fantasy IX Remake, if they're working on that and that's going to be a thing, when? When would that be a thing? Would it be in the near future? Is it going to be in the far future? Is it early in development? Because here's the thing you got to think of, right? We have Final Fantasy 16, brand new Final Fantasy game that's being worked on, right? We also have Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2. So right there, we have two different big Final Fantasy games, right? A brand new Final Fantasy and 7 Remake Part 2. We also have Final Fantasy Tactics Remake, and then of course we have Forspoken, and we have Kingdom Hearts 4 now. And I mean, technically, if you want to throw it into the mix, Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, which is 6 games. Missing Link is a mobile game, but it's not the same as like Union Cross and Dark Road. If you've seen the trailer for that, you'll know it's a little bit bigger and a little bit more ambitious, probably. I don't know. We don't know a lot of details regarding that game, but there's quite a few different games that have been announced that we know that Square is working on. And so, where would Final Fantasy IX Remake fit into the release schedule? Now, here's my personal, speculation. Right, this is what I think could happen, and I think that's the fact that, because we got Final Fantasy VII Remake, people are like, well, they'd probably wait till they're done, Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? Not necessarily, because what I think they could do is alternate back and forth, right? Because it's been a good chunk of time between Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 and then Part 2. And what I think they could do is, if they have enough developers to work on both, right? I would be assuming that it would be a different development team working on Final Fantasy IX Remake than 7 Remake. So if they have two different groups working on both, they can alternate. So for example, maybe the next game to come out is Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. Maybe that comes out this year or next year or whenever, right? Who knows? Let's just hypothetically say it comes out this year. I don't think it will, but anything's possible. Just for hypothetical speaking. Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 comes out this year, right? Then they start working on Part 3 for Final Fantasy VII Remake. But Final Fantasy IX Remake Part 1 comes out either next year or the year after, right? So maybe like every 2 years they alternate back and forth, right? Because these games do take time. That way they can have a steady flow of these games coming out, and at the same time, it kind of tides fans over, right? Because 7 and 9, I think, are probably the most popular Final Fantasy games of all time. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Personally, they are definitely my 2 favorite Final Fantasy games. I have not played every Final Fantasy though, but I really adore both those games. I also want to say really quick, if you ever heard me say in the past that I played a Final Fantasy game when I was really, really, really young on PS1, and I can't remember which game it was, my very first Final Fantasy game, I just remember this morning, it was definitely 9, which makes me even more excited, because I've always loved 9. I didn't really pay attention as much back in the day when I was a kid. But anyways, point being, I think they can alternate back and forth. So all that to say, I think there's a good probability that we're going to be getting Final Fantasy IX remade, which is super exciting. I hope it's going to get the same treatment as 7. And, when you think how they're going to fit that into the schedule, I think they're going to bounce back and forth between 7 and 9, where they'll release one part for 7 remake, so maybe Part 2 next. And then maybe in a year or two, they release, Final Fantasy IX Remake Part 1. And then, like I said, back and forth. And then somewhere among all that, we're also going to get Final Fantasy 16 at some point. Still don't know when that's coming out. Maybe that's this year, next year, the year after. I don't know. And hopefully Kingdom Hearts 4 is not in 2030, because obviously when Kingdom Hearts 3 first got announced, it took a very long time to finally get that game out. We're probably going to get some spin-off games in between before Kingdom Hearts 4 actually comes out. It still looks like it's kind of early in development, so I would not expect Kingdom Hearts 4 anytime soon anyways. The question is, what other Kingdom Hearts games comes before then, and where do all the Final Fantasy games fit in as well? So just wanted to talk about it really quick in this video. Let me know what you guys think about it all. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like, subscribe for more, and let me know your thoughts, of Final Fantasy IX possibly, most likely, I would say, getting remade. Again, take it with a grain of salt at the same time, because it's still not official, but I think it's pretty evident that it's likely. It's very likely, and I think that'll be super amazing whenever that gets officially revealed. So stick around for more, my friends. Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, and everything else gaming here on the channel. I'll see you guys soon. Another one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and until the next one, game on.